I'm ready when you are.
All right, awesome. Okay, so today we are talking to Angelo, my friend Angelo, who I've met through online dream weaving space. And I'm really inspired by him and his story. He is a light warrior. He's all about organic, clean living, and he spreads his message through really cool videos on Instagram, and just a super inspirational person and a big light in my life. So I'm really excited to share Angelo with you all. So Angelo, to start off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to be the man that you are today?
Wow, thank you for that introduction, Jillian. Well, I am a almost 45-year-old man. I live in Portland, Oregon. I was raised in the Northeast in Maine. I've traveled all over. I'm always looking for new adventures in my life. Some of those adventures have not led me to the most optimal outcomes, but they've all been beautiful learning experiences. So I've found that there are many pillars of health, and these are things that I have come upon through trial and error, some more error than positive. Like you mentioned earlier, I am a brain cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2013, 7 years ago, with a primary brain tumor called an oligodendroglioma. It's a rare kind of brain tumor that affects the central nervous system and the oligodendrocytes, which are the nerve casings of the entire nervous system. And so I had chronic epilepsy. I was medicated very highly on several different anti-epileptic medications. I was on even benzodiazepines, which I don't know if anyone out there listening knows is a pretty nefarious drug family. It includes Xanax, it includes Ativan, Klonopin, many other drugs that are highly addictive. And I'm sure some of us all know somebody who's had struggles with those drugs. They're kind of like opioids that they're not easy to get off of, and they're prescribed for anxiety, which is tied to epilepsy for me. And so it was a long, arduous journey. I've been through chemotherapy and radiation. I've gone through lots of depression, suicidal ideation, just really dark times in my life. I used to work in the entertainment industry for a while. I was in the music industry. And after that, I worked in the craft brewing industry as a fermentation specialist and just in vertical integration throughout the brewing industry here in the Pacific Northwest. So that was all fun and good until, I went through some toxicity in relationships. Family traumas. I don't want to go too deep because there's a lot to tell about health, but one of the pillars of health that I never realized even through my early comeback from cancer was the spiritual and communal element, the pillar of community. And through our group with you, Jillian, and some other groups that I'm involved in, I found this to be a very important pillar of health. You think of health, usually it's about exercise and diet is how most people see it. They don't really look at some of the other pillars, which are very important, sleep being one of the most overlooked ones as well. One I've still struggled with is sleeping, getting a good circadian rhythm. So putting all these together, having a meditation practice, having a daily routine, that was integral to my healing. And as you know me, probably many people know me through my online presence, is that I talk a lot about organic nutrition, because that's something that's, I think, is probably one of the most rudimentary pillars of health and wellness. What you put into your mouth and down your throat is probably one of the biggest votes you can make, other than how you think. And how you think is directly correlated with what you consume, and not just through your mouth, but what you put on your skin and what you put, around you, who you surround yourself with. So we're all connected, we're all interrelated. So I think that making conscious decisions, and it's not easy for everyone. So I know there's people out there like, how could I just completely go organic or vegan or whatever it is? I'm not advocating for a particular diet like veganism or keto or whatever it is. I'm just saying everybody's different. But when you know better, I believe it's our obligation to do better, because I view our bodies as a direct connection to our spirit, and what we how we treat our body is a reflection of how we live our lives. I look at my body as a sacred temple of God, and I never used to look at it that way. I was very self-loathing, and I was very self-destructive for many years. I always thought that drinking and using drugs and having sex without love, or watching porn or doing all these terrible things, not terrible, they're human things that we're all susceptible to, but doing all these things was my pathway to being a rebel, to rebelling against a sick society. And as one of my mentors, J. Krishnamurti, said, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I look around today, see 70% of people in America and Canada are overweight, 42% obese, and almost a fifth of the people in the West are morbidly obese. And that's to no shame of those people. That's a reflection of us as a collective. I think that we've been bombarded by a nefarious system of agriculture, pesticides, and a lot of people don't even know what glyphosate is. And that's one of my big purposes right now, is to educate people about glyphosate, which is a chemical desiccant. It's in Roundup by Monsanto, created that. They've also created stuff with DuPont, like Agent Orange, and all this terrible chemical pesticides that are used in war, and now they're being used on our crops. It's a war against humanity. It's a war against, it's a spiritual war right now. And the way we fight this war is by educating ourselves and compassionately educating our communities through our own actions. I mean, you can point the finger at people all day long, say like, you're overweight, you're this, you're that, but that's not going to solve the problem. The way to solve it is to be compassionate. It's easy to point fingers, but I think what we need to do right now is to be a living testament of these truths. And right now, you're not going to find these truths on mainstream television, media, newspaper, even on social media. People are being censored for their truth. People like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being taken off the air. They don't assassinate people anymore like they used to, like John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. They basically just media assassinate you. They take you off the platforms and silence you. So it's our obligation to continue to make choices which are going to change the world. Like how we spend our money is directly impacts the type of world that we want to live in. And because money, in a sense, is just energy and currency. It's not anything more. You can't eat money. You can't, do anything with money other than use it as a form of trade. So, to my mind, it's when people tell me like I can't afford to eat organically, I think, well, how much is your life worth to you? Mm-hmm. Because I personally started fasting the last 5 years, and I've never felt better. I don't make any important decisions in my life unless I'm fasted. I think it gets us closer to spirit. And there's a lot of things that I believe in that a lot of people would say is probably woo-woo or just kind of a little crazy. I know you don't, because you and I know each other a little bit, and we're both on the spiritual plane a little bit more than some people maybe. But I think there's definitely a correlation between the spiritual realm and the physical realm that's inextricable, that most people don't see because they refer to science. But what is science except something that's proven either correct or wrong based upon a certain set of criteria that's already in place? Mm-hmm. So I think spirituality reflects our body and how we choose to live our lives and act with compassion to other people and other beings, even plants, which I believe are also sentient creatures. I don't know if creature is the right word. So they're sentient beings. I think all things are sentient. Even like a rock is a sentient being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with so much of what you said. I'm just like, yes, all that. But it's really cool to hear a bit about like how you had more of a toxic lifestyle before, and then you just completely shifted, because I know I'm very similar, and I know lots of other people that are as well. So Yeah, all of that. All of what you said was great. I loved it. So on the account this week, we're discussing the term conscious eating, and you sort of actually touched on this already when you were speaking there. But if I was to ask you conscious eating, what does hearing that term mean to you?
Few things come to mind, Julian. I think of people that eat and why they eat. I implore people to ask themselves, am I eating because I'm hungry, because my body craves this, or am I eating because this is a way of coping? Am I coping with anxiety? Am I coping with trauma? Am I distracting myself from something that I don't want to face? And I think how many of us, we've all been there, I'm sure in the West, we look into our refrigerator and we stare, wondering what we should eat at some point in our life. Because why? We're not hungry. It's just something to do. Just like we keep looking to our phones and scrolling, and we keep looking at screens of, computers, televisions, whatever it is, because it's something that activates our nervous system. And it's the inability of us to sit still with ourselves and be present with our spirit. And so with eating is just like anything else, but eating is so integral to fueling our vessel, our three-dimensional vessel that we have here. And it's directly correlated to our spiritual world. So consciously eating to me means only eating when you're really hungry, and having your body in an alkaline state where you're not putting in contaminants like processed sugars and like genetically modified foods, like a lot of wheats and soy and corn, which most of those crops, especially here in North America, are all genetically altered crops. So if you believe in the adage, you are what you eat, then what are you if you are eating frankenfoods and genetically modified foods? I mean, there's a lot of powerful documentaries out there that people can watch, like What's with Wheat. That's an important one to watch about the consumption of wheat and gluten in our society today. That's a huge first step someone could make, is to educate themselves about those three main crops: wheat, soy, and corn. Because I think going back to nature, we are of a hunter-gatherer lineage, most of us, because farming didn't exist some 10,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think if we just return to the basics and learn to grow our own food, and if we can't have an intimate relationship with our farmers, mm-hmm. and it's not just about the process of masticating the food and swallowing it, it's everything leading up to that. It's about having a relationship with the food, the earth that it comes from, the air, the water, and the soil, and the microorganisms, and the circle of life that we're involved in. We die, we become food to other things, and it goes on and on. So if we think we're the top of the food chain, we're kidding ourselves, because we're not, because when we die, we are eaten also.
Totally. Awesome. I love that. Yes, this is so perfectly in alignment with what I was just with what I want to pass along. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to carry on. I have a couple more questions. So how do you think our planet / humanity would change if everybody chose to eat consciously?
That's a very interesting question, because I think that most people are as conscious as they can be at that particular moment. So for us to overthinking is a catabolic exercise. So I look at it as we are all doing our best as we know right now. But again, when we know better, it's our obligation to do better. If we don't, then that's self-destruction. And what is self-destruction is usually a symptom of a systematic malfeasance. So I would say that in this day and age, people just have to be compassionate with themselves first and foremost, because you can't have compassion or love for anyone else if you don't care for yourself. There's a personality that's the pleaser, that wants to make everybody happy and yet neglects themselves. But all love starts with self. And so this isn't to say that it's narcissistic or egoic. This just means that people need to be mindful of, their own body, their own life, their own spirit. And when they are fully in line with that, and I don't know if anyone ever becomes fully in line, because we all have the shadow, we all have the light, you know, the darkness is never going to be gone. I think we're seeing a very dark time right now in humanity, but we're also seeing the opening up of one of the most beautiful and luminescent phases of humanity as well. So you can't have one without the other. I think people, I know I kind of went on a tangent there and lost track of what you said a little bit, but I think what people can do is just be as self-aware as possible. It all distills back to balance. So you be as self-aware as you can, but don't mistake self-awareness with self-destructive self-criticism.
Okay, that was awesome. That's a really good point to make, is like, once you know better, do better. Because I think that that's so true, what you said about people are as conscious as they are. But yeah, I love that. And so then last question, if there was one heartfelt message that you could broadcast to the entire world, what would it be?
I think that to keep joy at the center of your heart, joy is the most important thing. Have joy in what you do. Ask yourself truthfully and honest, without as much any ego as you can. Am I doing this for joy? And is my joy should not impede on that of others. I mean, there's always going to be that thing, you're walking down the street, you're going to step on a bug, you know, inadvertently, or you're going to do something, all life ends up compromising other life. But really, coming from a heart space of joy is what I've learned. Being grateful and being of service is probably the most important thing. And those are tied directly to living in joy and gratitude.
Yeah, awesome. This is so great. Well, you shared more than a little bit of really helpful, good tidbits there, and I'm sure we planted some seeds. And I'm so excited to share this. So yeah, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and for like sharing from your heart. And I think that this was really fun, and it was really nice to hear from you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jillian.